What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to another Royal Rebounds Podcast live with Calvin and Barry. Today, we are discussing a very unfortunate event. Kings lose tonight, 107-97 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Very, very tough game to watch for Kings fans. The Timberwolves have lost 8 out of the last 9 games. And now the Sacramento Kings have lost 5 out of their last 6 games. Calvin, I want to hear your first thoughts on the game.
It was an ugly game to watch. Not just for Sacramento. Well, Minnesota looked pretty good there down the stretch in the fourth quarter and even in the third quarter a little bit. But the first half was very sloppy for both teams. Coach Walton alluded to that in his postgame press conference. Not a lot of good things to say. Many unforced turnovers. Kings shot horribly, and they didn't make enough adjustments defensively down the stretch to get the win, even though they were somehow again in a position to win this game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the Kings start out slow in this game, only 18 points in the first quarter. They shoot horribly. Now they're 6-9 on the season. We're talking about potentially Luke Walton losing his job. We're talking about the Kings potentially trading maybe Darren Fox, maybe some other players. It is not looking good in Sacramento. It's crazy, man. Metu starts again, which is good. I'm happy about that. You and I, before the game, we talked about your keys to the game, bench production for the Kings, and more importantly, bench efficiency. We can't have these guys coming off the bench taking a ton of shots and not making many. And Buddy Hield started out really slow in this game. I think he was 1 for 10 at one point. Ends up making some shots late on. Didn't have a good percentage, but he salvaged a little bit of the game for him.
He kept it close in the third quarter.
Yep.
And when I say he, I mean him. It was just him.
Our second key to the game was stay out of foul trouble, which I thought the Kings did a pretty good job tonight. Richaun Holmes ended with 4 fouls, but nobody was really in foul trouble in this game. And then cage the cat, which obviously the Kings did not do in this game. Karl-Anthony Towns, 22 points in this game, only 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks. He played huge. He played really big in this game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because when you look at those 3 keys to the game, the Kings checked 2 of those boxes. They outscored Minnesota on bench points. They did a pretty good job of staying out of foul trouble, although they let the Timberwolves get to the line really early on, very frequently. I think they had 7 or 8 free throw attempts in the first quarter, and they made every single one.
Yep.
So that was not good, especially in a sloppy game like that when both teams are shooting so poorly. Mm-hmm. They gave Minnesota a lot of free money points at the foul line. It's unfortunate to think that they actually did well in some of those categories and still come up shorthanded. And Karl-Anthony Towns, he wasn't the one that hurt them. He had a great third quarter. They came out in the third quarter looking to him. He scored 7 points in like a minute and a half or something like that.
Yep.
D'Angelo Russell was looking good. And then Anthony Edwards is the guy that killed him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. You want to jump here into the box score?
Yeah, Darren Fox leads the way. Really the only King, in my opinion, that had a good game tonight. 28 points. He was in the paint a lot. We talked a lot about points in the paint after the Kings' last game. He was 10 of 20 from the field, 6 of 8 at the foul line, and 2 of 5 from 3, which is not bad. 5 assists, no steals today. He had been on a tear lately where he got a ton of steals, didn't have any today. Outside of that, Buddy Hield, 16 points off the bench, did most of his damage in the third quarter, as we mentioned. 12 points for Richaun Holmes and 13 for Harrison Barnes. Davion Mitchell, 7 points off the bench. And Tristan Thompson gave them really good minutes, 17 minutes off the bench, 8 points, 9 rebounds. He led them in rebounds with just 17 minutes played. And Tyrese Haliburton, in my opinion, tonight is the weak link. 7 points, 4 turnovers, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. He was 3 of 10 from the field. He really struggled. He struggles big time against physical teams, physical opponents.
And a bunch of turnovers for him. 4 turnovers. I think that was all in the first half. So he cut it down, but yeah, a lot.
He also didn't play much in the second half because of that.
True.
He was on the bench a lot. And I would have liked to have seen Davion Mitchell play more in the second half ahead of Tyrese.
He had like 22
minutes. You know, it's not pretty average for him this season, but he's one guy that is not phased or flinches at all by a physical team. That's who he is. That's how he plays. Tyrese really struggles against those, and this is a physical team. You know, the Timberwolves get after it defensively in the passing lanes. They have big, strong players. You know, Anthony Edwards has obviously filled out his body a lot, so they can really make things difficult from a physicality standpoint defensively. And we've seen the Kings really struggle against those teams in the past, and you can see a direct result in that in their turnovers and their shooting percentage tonight.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of shooting percentage, 3 of 10 for Harrison Barnes tonight. I saw him aggressive late in the game. He's getting to the basket. Got fouled a few times. Perfect at the free throw line. But 1 for 2 from 3, which is good. 3 for 10 overall from the field. But it's weird. You and I were just so confused why he's not getting more three-point attempts, because early on in the season, it was Luke's like, I want him taking 8 a game. And I love what he's doing. He's playing well. He's a better shooter than he gets credit for. And we see him in a lot of these games lately, 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 2 for 4. So he's not shooting a bad percentage at all. But why is he only getting a couple threes? Metu had 4 threes
I'm not really
3
sure.
attempts.
Well, part of that is as Metu has worked himself more into the lineup and played more minutes, he is shooting more from the outside, so that takes a little bit away. You made a good point earlier today. We were talking about how Darren Fox was struggling so much early on in the season, and you kind of felt like Harrison Barnes being a leader on this team, maybe he was deferring a little bit too much to try to feel like he had to get Darren Fox going offensively. And we've seen Darren over the past week or so play much better offensively. He's shot much better. He's taken a lot of shot attempts as well. So that could be a part of it. It also could be game plan. I'm not really sure what it is. I have said repeatedly that I want to see Harrison Barnes be more aggressive. I think he needs to score more points for this Kings team to produce better and win more games. You know, offensively, their numbers are really good as a team, which is kind of the most head-scratching part about all of this. You know, they're third in points per game in the league. I think they're
111.
Fifth or sixth in offensive efficiency, something like that. Yep. But we've also seen them throw up a lot of these just terrible offensive nights where they shoot poorly. They failed to score 100 points again. And they've lost all of those games when they have failed to score 100 points.
Yeah, I was intrigued by seeing that they're third in the league in points per game at 111. And part of that feels a little skewed for me. You know, when they score 129 against the Pistons, they score 140 against the Hornets. You know, if the Kings would have scored 111, they would have won this game tonight. You know, if they would have scored 111 against the Thunder, they would have won that game. If they would have scored 111 against the Suns, they would have won that game. Same against the Pacers. You know, there's a bunch of games like that. Mavericks, and the Jazz too. It just seems like a little skewed number for me. Like it's not really something you can take at face value.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're not, even if you average 111 a game, you're not going to score 111 every night. That's just the law of averages right there. Yep. So they didn't, and from what I saw tonight, they just didn't make enough in-game adjustments to win. They came out and got blitzed by the Minnesota defense early on, tons of turnovers right away. And what do you do with a really physical, aggressive, handsy team on defense like that who likes to switch from zone to man? Ball fakes and backdoor cuts.
Yep.
I didn't really see much of that at all today. In fact, their best offensive possession tonight for me was, I think, in the second. It was either first or second quarter. There's like 2 minutes, 150 left in the game, something like that. Buddy Hield, backdoor cut, goes up like he's going to go up for a layup, draws the defense, kicks it to Harrison Barnes in the corner, open three, knocks it down. Yep. And I think that was the first three that the Kings hit in the game.
I also like that one play where it was like 3 guys involved and they were just chucking it up to everybody and someone gets an alley-oop dunk, I think, on that, or a layup. It was pretty awesome. So Makami says here in the comments, if Fox is scoring, Haliburton is quiet. If Haliburton is passing and commanding the offense, Fox is just standing at the three-point line. Luke, fix your rotation.
Well, what does that mean? Are you saying that neither of them can play on the court at the same time ever? I mean, I don't really think that that's the answer for this team. I did say earlier tonight, because of how Tyrese was struggling, Patrick Beverley was really making things difficult for him, and you could see that he was visibly frustrated by it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Davion should have gotten a little bit more run because of that. But long term, I mean, these guys, as the roster is constructed now, these guys are the future. So if they can't figure out a way to play together, I don't think putting one of them on the bench when the other one is on the court is the answer. You're going to have to make a deal and get rid of one of these guys and get something in return.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit later in the podcast here. But you brought up a good point in Patrick Beverley. He is known as a pest defensively around the NBA. And that just kind of made me think about some Davion Mitchell, Patrick Beverley comparisons. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. A lot of people feel like Davion's already at a really high defensive level in the league. Patrick Beverley has also been there for a long time. So I want to hear who you feel like is a better defender at this point, the similarities you see between these guys, and whether you think Davion has a chance to be a better player than.
Oh, Davion's ceiling is much higher than Patrick Beverley. Much, much, much higher. I definitely believe that. There are a lot of similarities. They're both, you use that word pest, they're very, very strong on-ball defenders.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I like more about Davion is his ability to recover defensively. Patrick Beverley is able to do that a little bit too, but when I watch Beverley play, he plays the mental game more defensively than he does. His foot speed is good enough to stay with guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like his whole thing is, how much can I get away with? How much can I make you mentally take you off your game?
Yep.
That's not what Davion is. Davion is, I'm physically going to stop you. You think you're going to get by me? I'm going to be right there with you the whole time. And even when he guesses wrong on the initial move or the fake, he easily recovers every time, and it's either a difficult shot or a guy thinks he's going to have a wide open layup and he suddenly gets closed off in the lane. And offensively, Patrick Beverley had 14 points tonight. He can occasionally hit from outside, but he's definitely not known as a shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Davion has not shot the ball exceptionally well this season, but he also hasn't really taken a ton of attempts either. He defers a lot out there. And I think that's kind of a natural thing for a rookie on this team that has a lot of guys that can score. So in a couple years, he will be a much better player than Patrick Beverley.
I like to hear that. Shout out Ben Kenobi. I see you in the chat. Welcome back. I love what you changed your name to, because we are all suffering Kings fans right now. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. We just keep losing these games. Welcome, everybody that's just joining us. Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV. This is the Royal Rebounds Podcast, live with Calvin and Barry. Want to remind you all to hit that like button down below. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. And if you would like to find out when Calvin and I put out a new video, make sure you hit that cowbell, that notification cowbell down below as well. I'm seeing a ton of comments here in the chat. It's all centered around trading people or firing Luke Walton.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. Pretty wild. I want to give a quick shout out to Rashawn Holmes. I know Rashawn collected his 2,000th career rebound in the last game. So good job, Rashawn. Happy what I'm seeing from you. All right, Cal. I think it's time to jump into some trades. Potential trade ideas. If you guys have any ideas that you'd like us to cover, let us know down in the chat, and we'd be happy to comment on them.
I think they want Ben Simmons.
So I saw a trade offer this week. The title of this article was big trade shakes up both teams. It's between the Warriors and the Kings. If I'm the Warriors, I'm not really contemplating a trade at this point because we're looking pretty good, and Klay Thompson isn't even back yet, which is crazy. And speaking of which,
or Wiseman,
to everybody that says that teams that score a lot of points don't rank well or do well in the league, the Warriors are number 1 in points per game, and they have the best record in the NBA at this point.
They also have one of the best defenses as well. I'm just saying. But
so this trade is sending Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, and Tyrese Haliburton to the Golden State Warriors. That's a big haul. For Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, and your guy, Moses Moody. How do you feel about that deal? There's no picks being swapped.
I'm really not so sure on this deal. And the reason for that is because we have not seen Wiseman or Moody play a lot since they've been in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And Wiseman this is now his second year. He hasn't even been on the court once this season. So you're giving up a ton if you're Sacramento for it's a huge risk versus reward deal for me.
Yep.
Andrew Wiggins is playing great. I love that. But we have talked multiple times about how the Kings are most thin on this team at wing. So getting Andrew Wiggins is great, but you're giving up Harrison Barnes. And then you're throwing in 2 question marks with Moody and Wiseman for 2 guys who are 2 of your biggest rotation players in Buddy Hield and Tyrese Haliburton. So there are some things to like about this deal, but there's a lot of question marks surrounding it for me.
Yeah, I think I would probably say no to this deal just because you're trading away way too much and you're not getting back any picks.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of James Wiseman. I like him a lot, but as you mentioned, we haven't seen him enough. He's had some injury problems, which we have a guy right now, a big man who has injury problems, who actually played tonight, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit as well.
And doing this deal means the Kings are going to have to change their style of play completely.
Yep.
100% complete, which may actually be a good thing. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but it could also just absolutely derail everything.
Yep, that's true. I think this is a little bit of a salary dump for the Kings. They get a cheaper guy in Wiseman, Moody. Wiggins makes a ton of money, but you're giving up Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes. I don't really see where this leaves the Kings with Richaun Holmes because I don't feel like Richaun Holmes and James Wiseman fit together very well. There's going to be no spacing on that team.
Certainly not right now. I mean, we've seen James Wiseman hit threes, and he will take them consistently, but he hasn't shown the progression. And that's, again, he just hasn't played that much. So you're not, as of right now, you're not really confident in his ability to be a floor spacer.
Let's see what you all think about that. Get Tyler Hero, trade Barnes. Yeah, I mean, we made a video about that. We would love to have him.
There's no question about that.
Speaking of which,
I don't see the Heat doing a deal for Tyler Hero right now.
Tyler Hero might be stealing the 6th Man of the Year award from Buddy Hield because he's averaging like 20 points a game.
Well,
off
he's
the
been
bench.
doing that all year, so I don't know if you can say he's stealing it. He's going out and he's taking it right now.
Tyler Hero and Buddy Hield.
Here we go. I like Makami. I love that. Bol. I think Bol would be awesome on this team. And he's a guy you could play with Richaun Holmes.
Yeah, I like Bol a lot.
42 minutes is healthy. A little bit much.
If he's healthy.
But I like the idea.
So I want to talk about our next trade deal. This one isn't a proposed deal. It's just been kind of something I came up with because I've seen a lot of mentions. And mainly between the Warriors and the Timberwolves, but that's Karl Anthony Towns and what's going to end up happening with him. They were on a huge losing streak. They end up winning this game against the Kings, which is not good for the Kings. It's better for the Timberwolves. He's pretty young right now. He's averaging 23 points a game this year, almost 10 rebounds. He's shooting well. He's on a max. Very well. He's on a max deal. What would you be willing to give up for Karl Anthony Towns?
Man, what would I be willing to give up? At this point, There really aren't too many scenarios, I think, or too many players on this team that I would say you don't trade for somebody of that caliber anymore. I'm still a little bit iffy on Karl Anthony Towns. Yes, statistically he's great. He puts up big numbers all the time. But he's never played for a winning team, and I get it. It's Minnesota. They've had problems for long time.
Yep.
But they've also had some pretty talented rosters and haven't been able to figure it out. And one thing I noticed today when I was watching Karl Anthony Towns, he is so careless with the ball.
He is. He really is.
6 turnovers. He's throwing passes that you see guys at the YMCA throw. You know, like, I mean, I couldn't believe that the Kings weren't doubling him right away when he got the ball and forcing him to pass every time. Because when he did pass, it ended up out of bounds 9 times out of 10. Like I really did not get the sense that he can be trusted with the ball in his hands.
Maybe that's why Jimmy Butler didn't like playing with him.
Perhaps.
Sean says, "What up, my fellow prisoners?" What up, Sean? Welcome. We are here to help ease your sorrows, I guess. Ramon says, Cat is not a good defender. You are right. However, I feel like Cat would play a lot better alongside Holmes than a guy like James Wiseman. And I don't know. It might take a guy like Holmes to end up getting him, too.
I was going to say, I don't see Minnesota doing a deal with Sacramento if they're not going to get Richaun Holmes back. I think they like Naz Reid, but I don't know if they're ready to have him be the man, the full-time guy.
I'm seeing a couple people talk about Pascal Siakam in the comments. And I saw an article this week saying that Pascal Siakam to Sacramento, rumors keep heating up. I think that this guy is a much more realistic deal than the other guys we talked about. He's only played 4 games this season. He's not playing too well, 17 points a game. Mm-hmm. He's making $33 million. He's shooting well, but he's just not having his normal impact on the team. And the Toronto Raptors are, I think, 1 game under 500 at this point.
Yeah. Well, Scotty Barnes has really played well for them so far, and that could be one reason why the Raptors might think they could trade Siakam, because that's a guy that they could slide into his full-time role.
What would you give up for Pascal? Pascal the Rascal, that's what we're going to call him.
I don't know. I think it's more a question of, what are the Raptors willing to accept? What would I give up for him? I'd try to get away with, the least amount that I could give up for him. He makes a lot of money, though, so you're going to have to throw something million in there. Buddy Hield for them might be a good idea. I
think Buddy and Marvin works out.
Yeah.
Salary-wise.
I would do that deal, absolutely.
If I'm the Toronto Raptors, I'm probably asking for a draft pick.
I would do that deal, too, honestly.
I think I'd do it if it was protected, maybe top 10 protected or something like that. Josh, how old are you, man? Says, honestly, I'm just hoping the Kings will make the playoffs before I kick the bucket. How old are you? Do you smoke? Are you in good health right now? I think you will be okay. I'm hoping so.
Put down that bottle of Crown.
That's funny. I would love to have any of these guys on the team, honestly. I love everybody we have, but I hate losing games, and it's really starting to build on me. So I'm happy with either of these guys here. So I want to talk about another article I read this week. It was titled, Kings Growing Concerned with Darren Fox, Tyrese Haliburton Backcourt Fit. And it talked all about how the Kings might consider trading a guy like Darren Fox if the struggles continue, because the whole point of making deals is to add more talent to your team. Darren Fox makes a bunch of money, so you don't have to include a lot of other young assets or fillers in a deal like that, and you could bring back in a guy like Pascal Siakam or Ben Simmons or something like that. I know you have been back and forth on this, right? You started off with they don't work together. Then we were like, okay, maybe they work together. And now we're like, I don't know. So I want to hear what's the temperature for you on this one now.
I think it's the same as the last time you asked me this question. I believe that the two of them can figure out a way to coexist, but I'm not sure that way equals not necessarily success, but I'm not sure that way works with how the team is constructed. Darren Fox is on a max contract. He's pegged as the best player. And I think the way that it works out best for them to play together is De'Aaron's not going to average 25 points a game. It's going to be 17, 18 points a game. He's going to be more efficient. He's not going to take as many shots. He's not going to have the ball in his hands as much because Tyrese is going to be running the pick and roll with Rashawn Holmes the whole time. So if that's the case, can you justify that production with how much money Darren Fox is making? And then when it comes time to pay Tyrese Haliburton, what are you going to pay him?
That was going to be my second question. Who are you trading first?
I go back and forth on this too, because earlier in the year, I think very early in the year, you asked me who would I trade between Fox, Davion Mitchell, and Haliburton, and I said Haliburton. Then the Kings started playing better, and a lot of that was because, we saw Tyrese miss those 2 games with a back soreness. He comes back. Immediately, Rashawn Holmes plays better. Harrison Barnes plays better.
Yep.
Tyrese looks good. He's hitting threes. And then he has a night like tonight where he really was a no-show for me. And it's like I said, he struggles. We saw it in college too. When Davion Mitchell guarded him in college, guards, very physical guard, he disappears. Because he doesn't, Tyrese's game is not the break you down off the dribble. He doesn't create space for himself. He has a really nice floater, a nice mid-range shot, a nice catch and shoot 3, things like that. But if you got a one really good defender that's hounding him all game long, he's going to struggle to create offense for himself. Doesn't mean he can't create offense for others, but he really got taken off of his game early on tonight with those early turnovers, and it was a trickle-down effect for the whole game. Now, it's just one game. I'm not saying, Tyrese is out. I want him traded or anything. But it does present an interesting predicament.
Conundrum.
Yeah.
Lane, what up, buddy? I see you in the chat. Ben says he wants Jaylen Brown. Ben Kenobi, you're active again.
I want Jaylen Brown too.
Ben's active again in the chat. Ben, I hope you charge your phone this time because we can't have you dying out on us. He says he wants Jaylen Brown. I would love to have Jaylen Brown too. I just honestly don't know what you're going to give up to get a guy like him. We're going to talk about the schedule in a little bit. I know it doesn't look good. The upcoming schedule.
It's brutal.
It is very
and those teams
brutal.
Are physical teams too, which a lot like tonight. So
shout out Tanvir. What's up, bud? Yeah, I don't really know. Okay, let's move on here. We're going to talk about some of this other stuff you guys are talking about later. I got a few more things that I want to touch on here. The next one is Buddy Hield. We talked about keep him, trade him. He's been playing good. He's been playing bad. He's all over the place. Buddy Hield has parted ways with his agent, Brandon Rosenthal of Landmark Sports, to sign with Icona Agency. This could be big news. This could be little news. Sometimes when players aren't happy, they change agents to try and get out of locations. Maybe they just don't feel like they aligned on certain things. Maybe he wants more money. Who knows? What are you feeling about this news?
I don't know. I mean, like you said, there could be a whole laundry list of reasons for why this is happening. And it could be all related to how he feels about the Kings. It could be not related at all to how he feels about the Kings. I mean, there's so many different. I'm not going to try to guess as to why this is happening because there are so many different options. And I'm not going to assume that it means he wants to leave Sacramento or that he's unhappy with his contract, he wants more money or anything like that, because there's just a lot of different reasons for why a guy could do this.
I think that something's brewing. I do. The Kings are losing games. The wheels are they haven't fallen off the bus yet, but the lug nuts have fallen off and the wheels are starting to wobble a little bit. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall already. Maybe he thinks, well, if I'm getting traded, I need someone that's going to represent me, that's on the same page with me, and I want to make sure I'm going to a contender or another good team. Maybe he felt like the last time his agent was like, hey, we got traded to the Lakers, and it didn't work out. So maybe that's why. I don't know. It could be nothing.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, before this season started, if you thought you were already traded, that's going to be in the back of your head the whole season. So,
Ryan, it's panic time. It's panic time, but it's single file out of the theater panic time, not run crazy out. We don't want to do that. All right, moving on here. Let's talk about Luke Walton. I hear everyone saying, fire Luke, fire Luke. I rarely ever hear a Kings fan say, hey, let's hold on to Luke Walton. Mm-hmm. And I know the old saying, right? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So the loudest people are generally the ones that aren't happy. So they're going to be screaming from the top of their rooftops. I can hear it, from here. Trade Luke Walton. Trade Luke Walton. I want to know how you're feeling about this. We talked about he's on the hot seat. There's been some news that came out this week saying that he wasn't going to have the same leeway that he had last year. If he goes on a big losing streak, he might get fired. 5 out of the last 6 games they lost. They're 1-5 in the last 6 games. Mm-hmm. I know that's not a 9-game losing streak, but it's pretty close to it.
Tanvir, that was funny.
Pretty close to it. So I want to hear your opinion here on this.
Yeah, I've been saying it for a while now. I think it's time to move on from Luke Walton. And I think the Kings, as I've said before, are in a better position this year to get rid of him right in the middle of a season like this right now, because you've got a guy like Alvin Gentry on the bench, who I'm not saying is necessarily the long-term answer, but he's a lot of times if a team fires their coach in the middle of the season, you expect it to be a complete implode after that.
Yep.
The Kings are still a talented team. They still have their only 3 games below 500 right now, which is not good, but there's a lot of games left. If they were to make this move right now, they would still have a chance to salvage
the next
season.
7 games.
Yes. Well, yes. But look, I mean, in an 82-game schedule, you're going to have 7-game stretches like this. That's you can't hide from the other teams in the NBA.
Yep.
So all I'm saying is I think that Luke Walton has not done enough with what he's been given in the time he's been given, and they've given him time. They've given him lots of time. Now,
Lane's ridiculous.
Yes, we already knew that though. But my point is that they've given Luke Walton players, they've given him opportunity, and they've let him be with a team that people felt like underachieved in the past, and said, okay, let's run it back. Yep. Let's give him another chance. Let's restructure the roster. Let's re-sign Rashawn Holmes. Let's do all this stuff. Let's give him another opportunity. And it's still not working. You can say the rotations are the reason. You can say the inconsistent shooting is the reason. You can say all of these things, turnovers, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. It's just not working, in my opinion. So, and then if you make this move now, you still have a chance to salvage your season with Alvin Gentry while you look for another coach. And if you make this move and Alvin Gentry doesn't work out, then everybody will just say, well, let's find the right guy to get this team going.
So it was reported this week. I don't remember who, maybe it was like Sam Amick or whatever, but it was reported this week that if Luke Walton ends up getting fired, Rico Hines is going to take over, not Alvin Gentry. I know he's a player development coach. He doesn't have a ton of head coaching experience, but players love him. They love working with him. So what are your thoughts on Rico Hines potentially taking over this team?
I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm all for giving guys an opportunity. But like you said, he has a lot of experience in the NBA, dealing with players on a day-to-day basis, being in practice. He knows what the drill is. He knows what it takes to do the job. But I feel like I'm just not so sure about that. I feel like
it doesn't
firing
fix.
your coach in the middle of a season, I would rather have somebody who's been there before.
Yeah.
At least for the short term. Again, I'm not saying that Alvin Gentry is going to be the next head coach for the head coach for the next 10 years.
Yep.
But I would much rather have somebody in that moment when you need to rally around the situation, the moment. Things aren't going the way you want. Your head coach just got fired. Let's have somebody in there who, has been in the driver's seat before.
Yep. I agree. Josh, I think that would be a pretty fair trade. They say life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, and that's kind of the same thing with Luke Walton, right? You never know what you're going to get. But hey, man, you're 18. You got plenty of time. You will see the Kings do well. Trust me. I think the last time the Kings were good, I was like 15 years old. So it's
the last time they made the playoffs, we
wild.
were 18 years old.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Don't age us like that, Cal. I was trying to give us the benefit of the doubt here. The Kings need to make a coaching change. I'm going to tell you all right here, right now, I think Luke Walton is going to get fired in the next week and a half. I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling that management is over it and they need to go a new direction. I don't know who's taking over, but I have a feeling he's out of here. I really do. And I've said that before. All right, let's talk about some interesting news. It's not exactly Kings related, but it kind of is. Crypto.com is taking over the Staples Center. So the Lakers and the Clippers will now play at Crypto.com Center. The reason I say this is Kings related is because the Kings were the first stadium in the NBA to accept Bitcoin, to accept a cryptocurrency as payment. And we've all seen with the price of crypto nowadays, that's probably worked out pretty well for them.
Well, I don't know how many people were buying tickets with Bitcoin at that time, but it certainly could have been. Some people could have been. I don't know.
It's going to be that guy that bought a pizza with 10,000. I bought 2 game tickets with 15 Bitcoin, and now they're worth millions of dollars. Crazy. So what do you think this means for the NBA? I mean, we've seen Miami's arena get renamed as well. What are you thinking here?
Well, I've seen a movement across lots of professional sports leagues to adopting crypto in some form or fashion. I mean, it's a huge trend right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think professional sports franchises are smart and they know that it's time to get behind it. So I find the Staples Center being renamed like this, and they're unveiling it on Christmas Day this year.
Yeah.
By the way, I think the timing is interesting because December is supposed to be this huge month for crypto, right?
Yep.
Bitcoin's supposed to explode and all this stuff. Maybe the Lakers know something that we don't.
And the deal, you want to talk about the deal? $700 million paid over 20 years. That's pretty wild.
It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty wild. I wonder if they're paying them in Bitcoin or not. Someone's mentioning the Suns arena too. I'm not sure about them. Would they take over too? Who knows? Lane, don't buy Safe Moon, dude. That's no good. You're better off with Shiba Inu. All right, let's talk about the man of the hour, Marvin Bagley.
He's the man of the hour?
He is the man of the hour because out of anything in this entire game, I'm pissed they lost. I'm a little surprised they lost. But in the first quarter here, I saw Marvin Bagley checking in the game, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is not the Pistons. We talked about the last game. He played to showcase himself for the Pistons. He ends up playing today, only 11 minutes, but I saw him in the first quarter. I think I saw him in the third quarter.
He came in the third quarter with, I don't even think they had played a minute yet of the third quarter, and he came in.
Yeah, and they weren't down a lot at any of these points.
Metu did shoot that turnaround air ball.
Yeah.
And, so I understand why Chimezie Metu was subbed out at that moment. But like you, was very surprised to see no Alex Len tonight.
Yep.
Tristan
we talked
Thompson did play a lot.
talked about they needed to play Alex Len tonight to help contain Cat. So I was really surprised I saw him out on the court tonight. I saw him step on somebody's foot like twice where he came up hobbling, and I'm like, oh my God, he's injured again. Like, Jesus. And I think he looked down. I think there was one point in the game he looks down at his own foot, and he's like, all right, I got to at least pretend like it doesn't bother me, because they put me out here and I get injured. So I'm going to ask you this another time because I asked you it before. What the hell is going on with this situation?
I don't know. Maybe Luke Walton's being pressured from the front office to play him because they're trying to trade him or something. I don't know for sure. Again, I don't have any inside information, so I'm not going to try to make any assumptions or guesses. I just feel like they're trying to get rid of him, and you can't do that if he just sits on the bench the whole time because he's been injured and he hasn't played in the past. So why is anybody going to trade for him now if he just continues to sit on the bench? Also, that coupled with the story that broke about how he refused to go in the game.
Yep.
When they tried to sub him in against Phoenix, that's not a good look for the Kings or for Marvin Bagley. So they probably had some conversation with him where they said, "Hey, man, help us help you."
Victor, I appreciate the support, man.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Don't forget to wash your hands.
Yeah. But no, in all seriousness, Marvin Bagley should not be playing for this team. He hasn't played a lot, so obviously he's going to be rusty, but he's a step slow out there. His shot is off.
Mm-hmm. I think, 1 for 5 tonight?
He gets some rebounds, but, I would hope you can get some rebounds if you're a 6'10" athletic forward like that. That shouldn't be a difficult thing.
Yep.
He just does not look good. He's not in sync with any of this team. He's not in sync defensively. He's not in sync offensively. He's not in rhythm. He looks a step slow. Like I said, it's just a bad look. And when he's one of the first guys off the bench, I mean, that to me is not the way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, you compare him to Tristan Thompson, which I feel like is a fair comparison. First big off the bench. Bagley played 11 minutes tonight, 2 points, 1 of 5, 5 rebounds. Tristan Thompson only played 17 minutes, which is 6 more than Bagley. Ends up with 9 rebounds, 8 points, 2 assists. He gets to the free throw line. He makes some free throws. It's really confusing at this point, but the only way that I can understand it is think that, like, maybe at this point, this is not Luke Walton's decision. And this
might not be.
This is coming from management where they're like, hey, you need to play this guy at this point. We were okay with you sitting him while we were winning, but now that you're losing games, we need to at least try something different. Mm-hmm. We need to put this guy on the court, see if he can help us, or if he can't, maybe he can help us by trading him for somebody that can help us.
Well, that to me is further cause to get rid of the head coach, because if your head coach and your front office are not on the same page and not agreeing, and your front office doesn't have enough confidence in your head coach to say, okay, you play who you think gives us the best chance to win on any given night.
Yep.
That's a bad sign, man.
It is a bad sign. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think what's going to go? I have no idea what's going to happen with Marvin Bagley, other than the fact that he's not going to be on this team next year. I know that. I don't know if he's going to finish the season with this team. I don't know if he's going to get traded the next week or not. I honestly don't know what any team is willing to give up for him at this point. And if I'm the GM of the Sacramento Kings, like, what am I going to accept?
Yeah, exactly.
If I get an offer, of like a backup wing, somebody that can come off the bench behind a Harrison Barnes, if he's a young guy, maybe that's a doable deal for me. I don't know. I'm not expecting anything more than an NBA player in a second-round pick, maybe.
Sorry, I'm just reading. Victor, I apologize. I didn't mean to hide that comment that you wrote. I was trying to get the message out of or the cue out of my thing, but I'm glad that you're able to watch us while you're, handling your business in the bathroom.
I'll unhide it right here. Lane says he is trash and he will be playing overseas in 2 years. Guys, all we need is like a 25-game winning streak, and we're right back in this thing.
That would help.
First place.
That would help big time.
First place. I don't know. Who do you think, Lane? Who do you think you trade Marvin Bagley for? Realistically. I want to realistically hear who you think Marvin Bagley is worth, because I'm dumbfounded at this point. I really am. All right. I want to talk about Darren Fox for a little bit longer. This may be a weird question for you. But we talked about Darren's struggles. He seems to be playing better lately. We talked about struggles at the free throw line, stuff like that. He's a lefty. The Kings have another lefty on this team who in 2013 decided to start shooting with his right hand because he didn't shoot well from the free throw line, and that's Tristan Thompson.
Uh-huh.
So do you like what you've seen from Darren Fox lately at the free throw line? And would you potentially recommend switching to your right hand if you can't make those?
No. The reason Tristan Thompson decided to switch hands is because he was a horrible shooter with his left hand. Horrible. His form was bad. He missed all the time. And we're talking about a guy who doesn't shoot from outside. He shoots dunks, hook shots. He changed his shooting hand only at the foul. I mean, yes, he does shoot hooks with the right hand, but I'm talking a real shot. You know, a shot 12 feet away from the basket. He only changed to go to his right hand, and good for him because it really was the right move. Darren, please do not shoot free throws with your right hand. He was 6 of 8 tonight. He shot free throws actually pretty. I don't have his stats here, but I would guess that he's in the high 70s right now, free throw shooting percentage-wise.
6 for 8 tonight. Josh, they already tried for Saddiq Bey, and Pistons said no. And as we saw in the last game, Saddiq Bey outplayed Marvin Bagley by far. That is for sure. Ray, I like your suggestion. Doug McDermott for Marvin Bagley. I think that's a great trade. I really do.
Why not?
I got to check on Dougie McBucket's stats for this year. He's with the who's he with nowadays? Spurs.
10 years worth of second-round picks for Bol.
10 points. He's shooting better from 3 than he is from 2.
Well, that's going to be him every year.
I'm concerned about the defense from him, but I think Dougie McBuckets would be a perfect guy to come off the bench right behind Harrison Barnes.
Yeah. I don't have any problems with that.
And I tell you what, I think he could play 11 minutes and get you more than 2 points.
I agree with that.
And Marvin Bagley, what is this, his 3rd game this year he's played in? So crazy, man. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I really don't.
They're in a tailspin right now. They really are.
Christian Yeager is not available at the moment, unfortunately. He's undergoing cancer treatment for, I think it's head and neck cancer. He's on a break. He's assistant coach of the 76ers right now, and he's taking a little break to get some treatment, so thoughts and prayers out to him. But I would also love to have him back on this Kings team.
Yes, definitely.
And I think if Marvin Bagley was on this team, he'd be happy to be back too, because I think that was the one guy that he did not like on this team. He did not like him at all. Everyone's talking about Mark Jackson. I would love to have Mark Jackson on this team. You know, a lot of these guys, I feel like the Kings jumped too quickly on the Luke Walton bandwagon. And the reason I say that is because they interviewed him before he got the Lakers job. And I think he killed it in the interview process. We all know about Vivek and the Warriors connection, so he probably was enamored by him with how well he did with the Warriors. We all know Luke Walton's a Laker. We all know that Luke Walton's dream job would to be the head coach of the LA Lakers. So he has a great interview with the Kings. The Kings want to hire him. He ends up taking the Lakers job. As soon as he gets fired by the Lakers, Kings are like, we want you. I feel like they didn't even really do their due diligence and interview many other people because they were just like, wow, we have a chance to get Luke Walton. He's a young mind. He played with, He played with Kobe Bryant. He got coached by the same guy that coached Michael Jordan. You know, he did well on the Warriors, blah, 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 all this. So I feel like they were just kind of a little too quick with that hiring. And a lot of the guys that you guys are naming, I'd be happy to have, but I don't want to make that same mistake again. I want Monty to thoroughly go through the process and figure out who fits this team the best. And Calvin and I are actually going to be doing an NBA 2K rebuild on PS5 in a couple days, so I hope you guys tune into that. It's going to be an interesting process. We're going to do it live. We're going to have some polls in the chat so you guys can help us decide who to trade, who to pick, stuff like that. But I think the main thing that we're going to start off with is we're going to have to choose a playing style.
Definitely.
So that could send you a couple different ways, right? Like, do we choose a playing style based on the coach? Do we choose a playing style based on the players that we have now? Or do we just say, hey, we're just going to hire the best coach we have, we're going to choose his playing style, and we're just going to trade and draft players that fit that style? That's something that we need to figure out before we start that. We really do. Lopez. Who, Robin Lopez or Brooke Lopez? I said Lopez.
Thanks, Lane. I've grown up a little bit. I don't destroy controllers anymore.
It's okay. I'll be handling the controller duties. Calvin will be running the polls in the chat.
Yeah, we're just going to simulate the games. We're not going to play them, so I don't have the ability to get pissed about losing and
or influence the games. We're going to let the players do their thing.
No, exactly. That's like if I was playing with the players and we lost, the chances that I would throw the controller would be higher.
Hey, you guys better watch out for me in NBA 2K. Back when I had J.R. Smith, man, I feel like J.R. Smith could do everything in that game. He just didn't have the mental. So if I'm controlling him, he could be the best player in the NBA.
We're talking about NBA 2K, not NCAA golf.
Yeah, he doesn't play anymore. All right, let's talk about man of the hour number 2, Ben Simmons. Calvin is nauseated by how much we talk about Ben Simmons on this channel. And frankly, I am too. But it just it's kind of like a car crash that you like see from like a mile away and you're like, no, that's not going to happen. That can't happen. It can't happen. Wow, that's going to happen. It's getting close. It's getting close. And then all of a sudden, bam. It just seems like this Kings team is destined to land Ben Simmons. It really does. Like, you see all the drama. You see the connection between the GMs. Darren Fox struggles. They say they're not trading him unless it's for a guy like Darren Fox. I don't really see any other team stepping up. I don't see another team that has a point guard other than the Brooklyn Nets. I think a Nets Sixers trade might be productive for both teams. But I'm not trading for a guy like Kyrie Irving at this point either. So you want to give us an update on Ben Simmons and just how you're feeling about this thing?
Well, I don't have an update on Ben Simmons because the situation is what the situation is. He is in complete limbo with this team. I don't know, man. I really don't. If Ben Simmons was playing and looked like he was interested in basketball, and I get that part of the reason he's not interested in basketball is because he wants to play somewhere else. And if he was somewhere else, he would be interested. But I just have a lot of nervousness trading for a guy who has completely taken himself away from the game. It's the same with Kyrie. Like, I love Kyrie as a player. He's an incredibly talented player. But you have asked me this before. Would I want Kyrie on my team? No, I really wouldn't.
That's
because
sad to
he
say
brings
that.
so many more problems, which is crazy to say, than he does with his production. And that's the problem with him is, like, he's so productive, but you just don't know if he's going to want to play.
He's not reliable. Yeah.
And I know we're talking about Ben Simmons, not Kyrie, but I see them in the same light right now. So I have a hard time trading my franchise player for a guy who I'm questioning what he's going to be like when he finally plays again, considering the last time we saw him play, It did not go so well.
Do you think Ben Simmons is vaccinated?
I have no idea, and I think that's the last of his problems.
Could that have anything to do with this situation?
No.
Okay.
If it did have anything to do with the situation, you would have heard about it. SportsCenter would have said something about it.
Yeah. I feel like the last
he's
time
not Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
He's Ben Simmons.
I feel like the last time that I've seen weird situations like this where you have guys that like want to play basketball, but there's just all these awkward things outside of basketball was I can't remember who drafted him, but I think it was the Rockets drafted Royce. What was it? Royce, the guy that was afraid of airplanes.
Oh, yeah. What is his name?
Royce.
He's a good player.
It wasn't
too.
Royce O'Neal. No. It was like Royce.
What is it? Does anybody out there know who this is? Who this guy is?
He was afraid of airplanes. So the team, they still draft him in the first round, and he was a good player. And they're like, we're going to have a
Royce
team.
White. Thank you.
Yes,
McConnell.
Royce White.
That's correct. Thank you.
They're like, we're going to have a team bus that's going to drive this guy from arena to arena. The NBA has really gone a long way since then. You know, the Nets are like, nope, we're not making any exceptions for Kyrie Irving. Sorry,
a pandemic
not
is a
going to
little
happen.
bit different scenario than I don't like airplanes, but
it's a weird situation. It really is. That's funny. Rolls Royce, yeah, he should have been driving a Rolls Royce, right? I don't ride in airplanes. I only ride in Rolls Royces. All right, Cal. Before we move on to the next subject, I know you talked about some trivia today. Calvin and I went on a beautiful hike today in this valley. It was awesome. We jumped in some waterfalls. It was a great time. But as we always do, we find ourselves talking about basketball the entire hike. This was like 4 hours long of basketball talk, which we love talking about basketball, so it's not a bad deal. But hit them with the trivia, Cal.
Okay, so this is a tough one.
No Google.
And this was a question that was asked to me by one of my friends, wondering if I knew the answer. And like you said, we had to talk this out for a long time before we came to even a guess of what we thought the answer was. It's a very specific question, but we'll see if anybody knows the answer. In fact, I don't want to misword the question, so I'm going to look it up real quickly here.
Dylan, we were hiking in the valley in the middle of nowhere because we're in Maui in the middle of the ocean. It's a beautiful valley. We didn't see a single person. Laniopoko Valley is where we were.
Okay, here we go. So of the 11 NBA teams that have never drafted a number 1 overall player in the NBA, 10 have later had a number 1 draft pick play on their rosters, including the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have 1 each. The question is, name the only team, 1 of 8, to have joined the league in the 1970s that has never had a number 1 pick play on their roster at any point in time. Ready, go.
Ready, go. Let us know in the chat.
Yes, we are in Hawaii right now. We live in Hawaii. We live in Maui. We are Kings fans. We grew up in the Sacramento area. We went to Davis High School, but we live in Maui. Toronto Raptors is a good guess, but it is incorrect.
Yeah, you got Andre Bargnani with that one. Bobcats.
Oh, wow. Dylan, you're killing it, man. That was quick. The Indiana Pacers is correct. They are the only team to have never had a number 1 draft pick play for their team.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. They must be teaching you well at Davis High School because I sure did not know that. It took us hours to talk about it.
We did come to the correct answer.
Yeah, but it took us
a long time.
Maybe an hour and a half to come up with that.
It took us a long time.
And the only reason that I knew that was because I remember watching a game. It was maybe 5 or 6 years ago where they acquired DJ Augustine, and they were like, "This is the highest drafted player ever to play with the Pacers." And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Really? Really? And then you think about it and you look at all these draft classes, they've drafted really well in the teens, really well. And a lot of these guys like Danny Granger, Paul George, you are like, wow, this is a great player. He's one of the best players, but they got to steal with that guy. So
they did. And it's pretty amazing to be, first of all, to never be in a position like the Pacers aren't in the lottery a ton. That they're never really in a position to get the number one pick. And then the fact that you've never had a number one pick on your team at any point in time, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it sent me, I think the reason we talked about it for so long was because it sent me into this rant about the Kings not having a number one pick because the Patrick Ewing situation. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys know about that. Some of you guys are pretty young here, but the envelope was fucking frozen. And Patrick Ewing should have been drafted by the Kings.
Here we go. We better save this show real quick because it could go south here.
David Stern was a huge Knicks fan, and he was saying that he is not playing him in a barn in Sacramento. This is before we had Arco Arena. However, I did forgive David when he kept the Kings in Sacramento, and I'm okay with David Stern way. I haven't stolen the sign yet, so it's all good. End rant. Okay, Calvin, let's move on here. I want to talk about one of the most painful parts of the show, more painful than tonight's loss. And that's the next 7 games that the Kings have to go through, including 1 back-to-back, 2 games against the Lakers, Grizzlies, Blazers, Jazz, Sixers, Raptors. This is a hell of a schedule to end the month. I don't know how the Blazers are doing right now, but every single team on this list is above 500 or like 1 game below 500 right now. And there's only 2 teams that are below 500 on that. That is a hell of a schedule. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm concerned for a good reason. I mean, some of these teams have really good records. They're at the top of their divisions or their conference. But more importantly, like we saw tonight with Minnesota, who is a physical team, gets their hands on you, gets in the passing lanes. They're a bigger team. A lot of these teams on the next 7-game schedule here for the Kings match that same build, same philosophy. Philadelphia, I don't know if Joel Embiid is going to play or not, but even if he doesn't, Andre Drummond's his replacement. Big physical guy inside.
Yep.
They guard well. The Lakers are the same thing. Big physical team. So the Kings are staring down the barrel of the gun right here for these next 7 games. This is a very important stretch for them. They really squandered an opportunity in the last week and a half where they had some very winnable games. Could have gotten a nice little cushion, could have been 3-4 games above 500 going into this stretch. That is not the case anymore. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, we're starting to single file out of the movie theater, but we could be screaming, running like chickens with our heads cut off very soon.
This plays into my prediction of Luke Walton being fired in the next week and a half, and is because of this schedule. We might have a happy Thanksgiving after all if we move on from Coach Walton. And I don't say this in a negative way to Walton. Like, I don't have anything against him as a person other than the fact that he was on the Lakers, and I hate the Lakers. But it's just, it doesn't seem like it's working out. And there has to come a moment where you're like, okay, 2 sides, obviously something's not working here, and it's time to move on. Maybe Luke needs a better place for him. Maybe the Kings need a better coach. I was happy the Kings beat the Pistons, but watching that game, I was kind of like, wow, if the Kings lost this game, Luke Walton would be out of here faster. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for this team in the short run, but I think it's good in the long run. Just because, as we talked about before, Luke's not Monty's guy. Normally when a GM comes to a team, they want to choose their guy, right? Because as a GM, you take responsibility for losses. Not every game, because that's on the coach, but the overall scheme of things, yes, you're responsible. And so why would you want to put your job on the line for somebody that you didn't choose? Maybe that's a conversation they had with ownership. Who knows? But the quicker that Monty gets his guy in this spot, I think the better for the Kings. And I think that he could go a few different ways with this. maybe fire Walton, keep Alvin or one of these assistant coaches on the staff, make a bunch of trades, try and get another high lottery pick, and then choose your guy at the end of the season, because there's always more coaches available at the end of seasons than there are mid-season. And it gives them a fair shot. I would feel like if you hired a guy outside of the organization to come in now, it doesn't give them a fair shake.
Too quickly,
yeah,
too quick of a decision to make.
It doesn't give them a fair shake at all. So I think Luke Walton's getting fired in the next week and a half is my prediction. So let's move here onto the schedule. 5 of the 7 of these games are all at home, which you'd think is a good thing, other than the fact that the Kings
very well at home.
have a losing schedule at home, which is not good. So next game is against the Raptors. The Raptors are currently 7-8 in the 9th position. Pascal Siakam's back. He seems to be playing okay. He's shooting well. He's getting reused to the offense. We talked about their rookie who potentially could win Rookie of the Year this year. He's looking
off to a great
pretty
start.
good.
Really, really great start.
I'm a little worried about this game. I really am. And then you go into the Jazz game. Kings have played great against the Jazz. They didn't win either of those games, but they were in both of them.
Yep.
I saw some positives tonight in rebounding. The Kings out-rebounded the Timberwolves. That was without Alex Len. I think that was maybe a team effort.
It's the only thing that kept them in the game, actually, was second chance points.
Towns only had, I think, 6 rebounds tonight. And it was a lot of offensive rebounds, giving the Kings multiple chances because they shot so poorly. So that's what I would look for in that Jazz game. Then you go on to the Sixers, another very tough team. Just a week ago, they were the top of the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
They're still pretty high up there. Do you showcase Marvin Bagley for the Sixers in this game? Does potentially a Ben Simmons trade happen around this time? I don't know. Hard to say.
It is hard to say.
Then you move on to the Blazers. They're trying to keep Dame Lillard, trying to do whatever they can. They obviously need to win some games. You got 2 games against the Lakers, and then you got the Grizzlies, another up-and-coming team. Ja Morant's an incredible player. A lot of people take shots at Darren Fox, saying that Ja Morant is what Darren wishes he was. We all wish we were that good. But you got any predictions here on records?
Oh, man. Well, the Kings just aren't playing well enough for me to have a lot of confidence in this next 7-game stretch. I'm going to need to see a vast improvement from them. I just worry that some of these teams are some of the better teams in the league. So the Kings consistently get out to really slow starts. Mm-hmm. Doing that against these teams is basically like just giving them the game. They cannot afford to do that. They really have to do everything better. Like, they have to shoot the ball better. They have to execute better. They can't make these careless turnovers. They have to be stronger with the ball. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to get better contributions out of Tyrese. Rashawn Holmes has kind of been in a little bit of a funk too lately. He had a good game. What was it, 2 games ago? Well, everybody had a good game against Detroit. I'm not counting that. But
Neil says 1-4
in the next 5 games?
In the next 7 games, I think, is what we're talking about.
If they go 1-4 in the next 7, I'm actually okay with that.
I don't know. Is there a tie? How could you have a tie? How many overtimes you got to play for there to be a tie? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible.
It's seriously, it's a daunting task right now for them. They're not playing well, and they've got some really good teams coming in. They are going to be at home. I don't know if that's going to help them at all. Maybe having a few games at home in a row, playing in front of Sacramento fans at Golden One Center, but they just really need to fix these simple mental mistakes, because it'd be one thing if they were just getting blown out every game, but they're not. They're doing stuff. They are playing well in spurts, which is why it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Even on a night like tonight, when they really shoot the ball terribly, they're still in a position to win this game at the end.
If you're Ben Simmons...
And defensively, I didn't think they played horribly tonight.
Yeah.
Defensively.
If you're Ben Simmons, do you make the road trip? He said he wants to go play for a California team, and they play the Kings and the Warriors back-to-back. Do you make this road trip and try and give some confidence for those teams trading for you?
Well, I've said it before. If I'm Ben Simmons, look, if I could talk to Ben right now, I'd say, hey, man, the only way that you're getting traded is if you get on the court and you start playing and you give teams a reason to trade for you. Mm-hmm. So whether that's in California or Minnesota or Florida, I don't care where it is. Just play. Play and show me why we should trade Darren Fox for you.
Man, it's tough, guys. It really is. We're here. It's funny. Before I ever did this podcast, I would watch the Kings games, and when they would lose, it was so hard for me to even turn on ESPN after the game. It's crazy. We won against the Pistons. We lose this game. It's high and then low again. The win against the Pistons didn't solve or fix anything.
No, it did not.
And that's what happens when you lose 5 out of the last 6 games. But what I was saying was, I was so hurt by Kings losses before that I didn't even want to hear about the Kings after a loss. I didn't want to watch ESPN. I didn't want to relive the experience. I didn't want to do any of that. Now we're here talking about it after every game, and it really kind of ingrains it in you. And I don't want to say I'm not looking forward to these next 7 games, because obviously I love basketball. I love the Kings. I want to watch the games. I want to be here and interact with you guys and have fun. But it's going to be a tough next 7 games. And I don't know what coach has to do. I don't know what the GM has to do. But the Kings still can win these games. We look at them and we say, hey, these next 7 games are really, really tough. And because they've been playing so poorly lately, we automatically notch them off and we say, okay, probably a loss, probably a loss, probably a loss. But in reality, they're really going to play all these games, and they could potentially win some of these games. We could feel better about this team. Right? I mean, there's some positives that could happen here in this next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, they've got to give us a reason to make that change in attitude, though. I mean, they that's the thing, is we all agree that they're close, right? Because they have improved, even if it's, very slowly or marginally over the last couple of years. They have improved. They were so bad defensively last year. They have gotten better defensively this year. They're maybe not as good as they need to be, but they have gotten better. So it is, sorry, I'm not sure who said it here, but it does come down to coaching. At the end of the day, something is not clicking, something's not aligning right, whether it's the sporadic rotations or the style of play or something like that. It is what it is. But at the same time, like you said, they could come out and win these games, because they really haven't been blown out very much this year. They've been in a lot of games, and they've played well against good teams like Utah, like Phoenix. They beat Portland on the road to begin the season. So they're capable.
They beat Phoenix.
They've beaten Phoenix, yeah. They're definitely capable of coming out and winning some of these games. But, yeah, I mean, every season is the same. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Last year, 2 9-game losing streaks. They closed the season on a crazy run. It looks like they may make the playoffs, then Darren Fox goes out, or they may make the play-in tournament. Darren Fox goes out. So they're just right there teetering on the edge of being not a contender, but relevant. That's all it is. It's just relevant in the NBA.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but after these 7 games, the next 2 are both against the Clippers. And Paul George has been killing it with them. He's been playing
very, very
really well. Felipe says, every season is the same. We are always close, but never take the next step. We will not get there with Walton. Yeah, I feel you, man. I really do.
I have to agree with that
feels
statement.
like that movie Groundhog's Day, right? Where you got to break the curse. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what needs to happen. Something needs to change.
And maybe at this point it is a blockbuster deal, where they trade Darren Fox for something, whether it's Ben Simmons or another star. I don't think if you're the Kings you can even contemplate trading Darren Fox for not a star in return.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's no secret from day one that's been Monty's plan, right? He was taking over this team. He was getting rid of all the bad contracts. He's accumulating assets. He's drafting well. He's keeping his draft picks, and he wants to make a big splash. We saw them, with the Houston Rockets. They pulled the trigger on that James Harden deal. I know he wasn't the GM at the time. He was the assistant GM, but he was highly involved. He was involved in scouting. They brought in a guy like James Harden. He did great, and he attracted free agents. They were able to sign guys after that. They were able to bring in Dwight Howard. They were able to trade for a guy like Chris Paul and make him happy. So they were able to bring in Carmelo Anthony. So I think that's kind of been the plan from day one, is to evaluate what's on the team, get rid of bad contracts, balance the budget, as you would say, and accumulate assets to trade for a big guy. I just don't know who that big guy will be at this point, but I'm excited because one thing I am confident in this team is the front office.
Yeah.
And that's just because they haven't had enough time to disprove me. And they've drafted well.
They have. There's also a lot of really, really good young talent in the league right now. Mm-hmm. Widespread across it. So there's ample opportunity to go out there and try to make a splash.
I saw somebody in the chat here mention Porzingis. How do you feel about Porzingis, the zinger?
I'm not really high on Porzingis at this point. He had a couple good years, but I feel like his story is the same as any real, really, really big man who struggles with injuries.
Yeah,
it just completely takes their game away. I mean, he can still shoot, but I just don't see him returning to the dominant form that we saw from him, towards the end of his stint in New York and that one good season he had in Dallas.
Yep.
And maybe Dallas isn't the right situation for him. I know that there have been a lot of reports about, does he struggle playing well with Luka? Do they not get along or any of that stuff? But I don't think that Porzingis is the right move to make.
He would play well, or he would fit well next to Rashawn Holmes. He's a big guy. He gets rebounds.
As a floor spacer, yes.
And the Kings are lacking a four. They really are. So I think he fills a need, but I don't know if he fits play style, like you're saying. Yeah. And he has injury problems, which are four that should be starting right now, and Marvin Bagley has the same issue.
I definitely would, Josh, consider Devin Booker a star. No chance that the Kings get him.
Not available.
No chance.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. All right, before we wrap it up here, I want to remind you all, Friday we released the Royal Report. It's a Sacramento Kings sports talk show. It's ESPN style. Calvin and I, we have our own windows. We talk about specific Kings topics. It's about 30 minutes long. We wrap up a whole week of Kings coverage in about 30 minutes. So if you are not available to watch every single game, make sure you guys catch that Royal Report on Friday. We will also be live again after the game on Friday night. Hopefully a Kings victory against the Raptors. Want to remind you all, if you are a Kings fan, hit that like button down below. If you would like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And anything else you want to mention before we take off?
We need a win.
Kings got to do something. We got to get a win. All right, guys. We'll see you all Friday night. And in the meantime, go Kings.